Tonight, some concerned Shelbyville residents are condemning the Ku Klux Klan after the group's calling card, several of them actually, end up on some area doorsteps. Now, even though police say one individual homeowner who reported it does not feel intimidated, others want to make sure that the Klan knows it's not welcome there. Fox 17 News' Erica Glover live with a closer look at these cards and reaction to them.
Well, Scott, the women that I spoke with say sadly they are not surprised by these business cards. In fact, they have heard of similar incidents happening in the past, which is why tonight they are really using their voice to say this is not going to be tolerated.
No property should be damaged regardless of what candidate you support.
When Shelbyville resident Brianna Green noticed a damaged Joe Biden campaign sign on her friend's unoccupied property, she grabbed what was left to leave it on their front porch. But instead of a welcome mat, she noticed Ku Klux Klan business cards.
There were several cards. There were about 15 to 20 cards laying on the ground. The cards read, "You have been paid a social visit by the Knights of the Ku Klux Klan. Don't make the next visit a business call."
Shelbyville Police were notified about the early October incident and shared this statement, writing in part, quote, "This is the first incident we have been made aware of regarding these specific business cards. Additionally, we have received no reports of attempts at voter intimidation or threats."
I think the police are doing what they can with what they have. What we haven't seen yet is statements from county officials or city officials. So I would hope that we see statements coming out from them denouncing white supremacy as well.
This afternoon, Fox 17 News reached out to Shelbyville City Council members, along with Mayor Wallace Cartwright, to get their reaction in response to the KKK occurrence. We are still waiting for their reply.
We are going to come together tomorrow and, go up against hate.
Stephanie Isaacs with the community group Shelbyville Loves says they're not waiting to take a stand.
I know some people try to say if we just ignore it, it'll go away. It won't go away.
Isaacs is inviting you to meet in Shelbyville City Square tomorrow at noon for their Y'all Means All socially distanced block party, featuring speakers who will call on their elected officials to publicly condemn all KKK activities.
We said no to the KKK when they came like 3 years ago, and we're still saying no to them.
Promoting a Saturday of solidarity for a community facing division. Now, organizers tell me this event is also going to be about healing on Saturday. So for more information to figure out where and when it is, just head to our website, fox17news.com.
Began tonight with concern over a new law in Franklin that requires a permit for protests of more than 20 people.
City says it's all about safety, but critics say this is a violation of their First Amendment rights. Fox 17 News' Rachel Teedy now live in Franklin after speaking with stakeholders and an expert about whether this new city ordinance is even legal.
It was a close vote earlier this week, 4-4, with the mayor actually having to break the tie in favor of this bill. And people say that this could be a risky move. Lawmakers not necessarily agreeing with it, and they're worried for what could come next.
This ordinance, in my view, will probably do more harm than good.
We've seen several protests across Middle Tennessee this year, some here in Franklin. There's a new law that requires protesters to get a permit with conditions, like if they'll have more than 20 people or block traffic. But some say there's concerns.
This is just a move to protect the government and not the people, is basically what this is.
Some council members shared concerns as well, but those in favor of it say it'll keep people safe, like keeping counter-protesters separated and making sure there's plenty of safety measures. Eric Stuckey, the city administrator, said this has nothing to do with the message of the protests.
It's only about time and location. It's not about the message. It's not about anything else but helping us manage it, facilitate it happening in a safe way.
I asked Stuckey how people can make sure the city won't play favorites and only approve protests that the city agrees with.
It's very narrow for denial. I mean, the primary reason it can be denied is some other group already is assembling or using that space.
I also asked a legal expert at Vanderbilt, can the city do this?
On paper, it looks like it might comply with the First Amendment. That's a different question from whether it's a good idea or not.
She said the problems for the city come when enforcement starts.
If they end up only giving permits to groups they agree with and not groups they disagree with, then that would be certainly potentially a problem, but that would depend on how it gets enforced in the future.
So while the law is in effect now, some say there will be repercussions from this.
My response is there are 4 of them that are up for re-election next year. And I think we're going to see big changes in the city, big changes in the leadership come next year.
Now, there are exceptions to the rule. On Fox17.com, we have those listed out for which protests don't necessarily need a permit. The city administrator also said that if something happens in the news, there's some event or people want to hold a protest or a vigil for said event, they're actually okay with people not having a permit for that particular case because they say they understand the need for people to respond immediately. So again, more details at Fox17.com.
We begin now with a path forward because despite the ongoing coronavirus pandemic, some fall and winter events across the state are still scheduled to go on.
Now, given the recent uptick in COVID-19 cases across the volunteer state, the question becomes how can these events be held safely? Fox 17 News' Kathleen Surree joins us live in Nashville with more on the growing concern.
Well, it's been a rough year for events all over the country. We're talking about sporting events, musical concerts, and other festivals either completely canceled or some of them postponed. So today I talked with local organizers on both sides, those who are going forward with their events and those who had to cancel. In Dickson, several fall and winter gatherings are going on as scheduled, including Boo Fest on Halloween. An event flyer says everyone in attendance will be asked to respect social distancing guidelines and masks are encouraged. Still, Dickson County has never had an official mask mandate. So I called the city spokesperson to ask how this and other locally scheduled events can happen safely in the middle of a global pandemic. To talk about how these events are going to be held safely, I also emailed and got this written statement. It quotes the mayor saying it's important that those events go on, but he encourages everyone to stay vigilant in the fight against the virus by wearing masks if social distancing isn't possible. Other events still happening in Dickson include a homecoming pep rally, parade, and coronation for Dickson County high schools this Friday. This year, parade float preparations are limited in numbers and masks are required. The pep rally is being held outside, and students will be socially distanced for all events.
So certainly this is not a decision that we take lightly. We know and understand that it can change daily, but we also want to make sure that students have the opportunities that they need and deserve.
But not all mid-state events are going on as planned. The annual Pumpkin Fest in Franklin, which typically draws around 75,000 people, is canceled this year.
We support everybody. We're happy for those that have made decisions to continue and, hope that it can all be done the safest way possible. We just had to make a decision for the economics and for what we felt was safety, and we made it all back in the summer.
Williamson County's mask mandate expired at the end of August. The city of Dickson will also be holding their downtown Christmas event in December, and we also know that the Heritage Center of Williamson County is pivoting to some other events in place of Pumpkin Fest this year. We'll have more information on all of those events under this story at Fox17.com.